Senate will come to order, including senators from Windsor. Please join me in a moment of silence in lieu of a devotional. Thank you. And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any announcements?
Seeing none, we have two bills that need to move under Rule 31, H321 and H397. We'll move to the Finance Committee. We have a joint Senate resolution, JRS 27, regarding weekend adjournment. Please listen to the reading of that resolution.
Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that when the two houses adjourn on Friday, May 23, 2025, it be to meet again no later than Tuesday, May 27, 2025.
Having heard the reading of the resolution,
Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have adopted JRS 27. We have a joint House resolution to take up at this time, JRH 5, introduced by Representative Kruwinski and others, and passed on May 16th. Listen to the reading of the resolution by title only.
JRH 5, Joint Resolution Authorizing Limited Remote Joint Committee Voting through the remainder of calendar year 2025.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution. The chair, in its discretion, will place this resolution on the calendar for action tomorrow. That brings us to the orders of the day. We will be moving over H50 and move to H209, an act relating to intranasal epinephrine in schools. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Seeing none, please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H209, an act relating to intranasal epinephrine in schools.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have passed H209. We have up for third reading H222, an act relating to civil orders of protection. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Seeing none, please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H222, an act relating to civil orders of protection.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have passed H222. We have up for third reading H482, an act relating to Green Mountain Care Board authority to adjust a hospital's reimbursement rates and to appoint a hospital observer. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Senior Senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no amendment, but there were questions when the bill was presented regarding material misrepresentation and the question about whether or not that had occurred during the recent concerns regarding one of our hospitals. So going back to look at the testimony in our committee, we heard from Chair Owen Foster, Chair of the Green Mountain Care Board, who indicated that with regard to appoint an independent observer, the chair said, and may I quote,
You may.
Any hospital can avoid having an H482 trigger of a monitor by not making material misrepresentations and to actually making a finding of material misrepresentation is a serious, serious thing to do. We could not actually found we had hit that step. The language did not come out clearly, but effectively, the chair of the board indicated that there was not a material misrepresentation consistent with what we have passed in the, we will pass in H482. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H482, an act relating to Green Mountain Care Board authority to adjust a hospital's reimbursement rates and to appoint a hospital observer.
Having heard the third reading of the bill, the question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The division has been requested. All those in favor, please stand to be counted. Thank you, Senators. All those opposed, please stand. Please remain standing. All right, thank you, Senators. Please listen to the results of your vote. In favor 16, opposed 12, and H482 passes. We have now on the calendar for second reading H504, an act relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the City of Rutland. This bill was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass in conference. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H504, an act relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the City of Rutland.
I would look to the senior senator from the Rutland District for the report of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. So as was indicated, Section 1 of this bill approves amendments to the charter of the City of Rutland. There were actually 2 votes taken on some of the provisions. The first one was back on November 5th, 2024, when the general election took place, and then the second vote was March 4th, 2025, town meeting day. Section 2 amends the city charter to eliminate the city's specific cap on the penalties for violation of a criminal ordinance and instead ties that cap on penalties to those established by general law in Title 24. It increases the city's municipal tax for the replacement of fire equipment from .0175 to .0225 on the dollar of the grand list. It establishes a new municipal tax for the replacement of police equipment, which shall not exceed .018 on the dollar of the grand list. It eliminates the city's specific threshold requirement for requisitions to be sent out to bid, which is currently $3,000, and instead, this requirement will now fall under the city's purchasing policy. It reorganizes the city's redevelopment authority so that the membership consists of the city treasurer, 1 member appointed by the city council for 1 year, 6 members who are residents of the city appointed by the mayor with approval of the city council, and 1 member who's a property owner in the city and a resident of Rutland County appointed by the mayor with approval of the city council. And it establishes transitional terms of office and staggering the future terms of the redevelopment authority until the 3rd year following the reorganization. Section 3 redesignates the charter of the town of West Rutland so that the charters will be in alphabetical order. And Section 4 sets the effective date as on passage. Committee heard from the sponsor of the bill, Representative Howard of Rutland City, the reporter of the bill from the other body, Representative Pisanal, and Rutland City Mayor. The committee vote was 5-0-0, and we ask the Senate to concur. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Question is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have moved H504 to third reading. We have up for action now H105, an act relating to expanding the Youth Substance Awareness Safety Program. It was referred to the Committee on Judiciary, which reports that it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass in concurrence. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H105, an act relating to expanding the Youth Substance Awareness Safety Program.
I'd like to recognize the senator from Wyndham, Senator Hashim, for the report of the Committee on Judiciary.
Mr. President, we just discussed an amendment in our committee this morning, and I would ask that we pass over this for tonight.
We will do so without objection. That brings us to H2, I believe, are we still passing out? If the doorman could bring the copies back. Sorry, Denny. Yeah. Could I ask for a moment of appreciation for our hardworking doorman? We have up for action H238, an act relating to the phase-out of consumer products containing added perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances. It was referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass in concurrence. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H238, an act relating to the phase-out of consumer products containing added perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances.
I would like to recognize the senior senator from Chittenden Southeast for the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a continuation of the work that we have done over many years on the elimination of perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, commonly called PFAS, which I will refer to throughout the presentation today as PFAS. As you know, these chemicals can cause significant healthcare problems, including raising cholesterol levels, reducing antibody vaccine responses, can cause pregnancy-induced hypertension, can cause decreased birth weight, and other developmental issues. It just takes a little tiny bit of these chemicals at a critical time during development to cause problems during gestation. Also can cause cancer in the kidney, testicular cancer, and thyroid, sex hormones, other hormones are affected negatively and can influence ongoing disease states when we're exposed to PFAS, and also affects liver enzymes. And if those of you who understand the liver know how critically important those enzymes are to our everyday metabolism. So last year we passed Act 131, and this bill, and when we passed Act 31, we banned PFAS in such products as artificial turf, cookware, textiles, and juvenile products. And now we're beginning a proactive approach, again, to prohibit products containing PFAS from sale and distribution in the state as a means of reducing the sources of PFAS that are in our environment and to which we can be exposed. The Act 131 had some specific recommendations. That as the bill came to us from the other body, we concurred with most of their recommendations on what came out of 131. We did make a couple of changes, and I'll identify those as we go through the bill. There are 3 new products that we will talk about that are listed as consumer products for which we will hopefully no longer see PFAS. Those products include cleaning products, dental floss, and fluorine-treated containers. We also are adhering, one of the things that we're doing, which is consistent with what has come to us from the House, with the definition of PFAS that we currently have in statute. And just as an aside, I will say that there's a very narrow definition of PFAS at the federal level through the EPA. Recently, the EPA has moved from 6 molecules to 2 molecules for regulation. There are thousands of these molecules in our water and in other products. So we're adhering to our broader definition that we've had in place. So as we go through H238, you'll see the 3 new products are added into statute. The other thing that's important here, and which makes it for a longer bill probably than you would like, is that there's a new subchapter. We've run out of space in our statute to list new products, so we now have a brand new subchapter 12A that is just all about PFAS changes. So there are structural changes within the subchapter to consolidate the prohibitions and of some new sections that are included. So although H238 continues with the current structure for regulating PFAS and consumer products, it also requires for the Agency of Natural Resources to come back with a report to General Assembly regarding how states are implementing regulatory programs for PFAS in consumer products based on the definition that we are using in our state. In addition to the recommendations that have come to us from the other body, we are also including some new amendments with respect to PFAS in personal protection equipment, PPEs, for firefighting personnel. And currently, if PFAS is in firefighting PPE, a manufacturer selling that PPE must notify the purchaser of the presence of PFAS. Senate Health and Welfare also has added into that provision a ban on PFAS in professional protective equipment, firefighting equipment, in 2029. So essentially, what has come to us from the House is consistent. We've added in, changed the definition of intentionally added, which I'll mention as we go through, and then we've added in some language regarding firefighting equipment. So going to the bill, in section 1, this is the amendment of the subchapter from last year, and adds 3 new definitions into what is regulated under the subchapter for consumer products, which is under Title 9. So the 3 products are cleaning products, dental floss, and fluorine-treated containers. Each one of those are things that could offer exposure to humans and be released into the environment. We also proposed the next next part of the bill, we recommend changing the definition of intentionally added under the subchapter. So that new definition, I will go back and make sure I am clear about it. Intentionally added PFAS is changed to mean PFAS added to a product regulated under the subchapter or one of its product components to provide a specific characteristic, appearance, or quality, or to perform a specific function. It also includes degradation byproducts of PFAS or PFAS that are intentional breakdown products. And the intentionally added would include things like if you were making a plastic that's in a mold, it would include the PFAS that's used in the mold release. And if it persists on the product, then that would be included in that intentionally added definition. Section 1 then amends Title 9, 2494F to consolidate prohibitions on PFAS and consumer products that we put in last year. So now there's a list under 2494F sub A of those products. And as you go down the list, you'll see number 3 is cleaning products, number 5 is dental floss, and fluorine-lined containers are not yet listed because the date for that ban is further on. It hasn't yet happened, but it will, should this bill pass. So 2494F sub B prohibits the manufacture, sale, offer for sale, distribution for sale, or distribution for use of textiles or textile articles to which regulated PFAS has been intentionally added. It treats PFAS somewhat separately, and as it came over from the House, the amount of PFAS allowed in textiles will be reduced from 100 parts per million to 50 parts per million in July 27. And the other sections have been struck out, so you'll see a lot of things that are struck out, and that's to restructure the subchapter. Section 1 also includes 2494G addressing fluorine-treated containers. And the first subsection bans the sale, distribution, or distribution of a consumer product if the product does not contain intentionally added PFAS, but it's sold or offered for sale, distributed for sale, or distributed for use in the state in a fluorine-treated container. In other words, if you can put something in that doesn't have fluorine on it and then put it in the container, and that fluorine in the container might leach out. So that product that's in that container, in that fluorine-lined container, will not be allowed to be distributed or sold in the state. The second part of 2494G does allow for garage sales, so you can sell, there's a sale for things that have been used. And then the third portion of subsection 2494G, C, provides that beginning on January 1st, 2032, a manufacturer shall not manufacture, sell, offer for sale, distribute for sale, or distribute for use in the state a fluorine-treated container or any consumer product in a fluorine treated container. So you can see then, once 2032 comes around, then fluorine-treated containers will be added to the list that we looked at earlier. Then there's a section that talks about elimination of rules that the Attorney General would have to write related to intentionally added. When we changed the definition of intentionally added, then there was no longer the necessity for the rulemaking process. We also then renumbered the Attorney General's existing authority. Since it is under consumer protection, it would be enforced under that chapter. Section 2 amends the PFAS levels in textiles that I mentioned earlier. Section 3 adds outdoor apparel for severe wet conditions, so adding a reduction of PFAS in those outdoor apparel products by 2028. And then Section 4 is a report from the Agency of Natural Resources on the operation in other states where our definition of PFAS is utilized. Section 5 is a report on PFAS and complex durable goods. In other words, those durable goods that are composed of 100 or more manufactured components with a useful life of 5 or more years. So that report will be coming back to us. In Section 5, also the Secretary of Agriculture will report back on to address PFAS in food. These are all consistent with what has come to us from the House. Section 6 is a repeal. Section 6 and 7 are more technical and repeal prior language that's no longer necessary. Then sections 8 through 12 were added by your Senate Health and Welfare Committee and relate to PFAS and firefighting equipment. It replaces the definition of intentionally added under consumer products for consistency, so intentionally added for PPE. And then Section 9 amends the requirements for sale of firefighting PPE containing PFAS. Currently, as I said before, manufacturers need to notice those who are purchasing PPE that it does contain PFAS, if it does. And Section 9 would continue, but then Section 9 would actually ban the sale of personal protective equipment in July 2029. Then Section 10 relates to the sale of respirators containing PFAS. The respirators are a little more complicated. We did not see an opportunity for products that would replace respirators that do not contain PFAS. So that the prohibition of sale for respirators won't begin until July 2032, and that's consistent with what we also saw earlier with fluorine-lined containers. Section 11 is session law and requires the manufacturer of a firefighting station to wear stationwear to provide notice to buyers of the presence of PFAS in stationwear. Now, stationwear are the polos and the chinos that you wear when you're in the station. And so right now we already are putting in a ban on textiles for textiles containing PFAS. So we didn't have to, that goes into effect in July 26. So we didn't need to do too much there to protect our firefighters from their stationwear if it contains PFAS. Section 12 requires A&R to report to the General Assembly regarding the availability and the cost of PFAS-free firefighting PPE to help inform purchases by professional and volunteer firefighting companies. Section 13 is a long list of dates for the entire bill. The new dates that we have put in is the definition for intentionally added, and then the new cleaning products, dental floss, fluorine-treated containers and products in those, and the different dates for that going through the entire list. I will not read it all to you unless you would like that. So, Mr. President, I won't. So just to let you know, Mr. President, that we heard from a number of folks regarding this bill. We know how critically important it is to eliminate toxic chemicals from the products that we live around and with, from getting into the environment and then ultimately into the water that we drink. So we heard from Michael Grady, our Deputy Chief Counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel, Representative Ella Chapin, reporter of the bill, Kelly Ault, Executive Director of the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance, Steve Burns, Executive Director of the Cookware Sustainability Alliance, Matt Chapman, Director of Waste Management and Prevention Division, DEC, Charity Clark, Attorney General, Tad Delvaux, Assistant Attorney General, David DeVice, Second Vice President of the Vermont State Firefighters Association, Bill Driscoll, Vice President of AIV, Chris Doobie, President of the Professional Firefighters of Vermont, Cindy L., President of the Firefighter Cancer Foundation, Dean Gilmore, Chair of Government Affairs for the Vermont State Firefighters Association, Mark Levine, Commissioner of Health, Anna Suberling, Environmental Advocate from Vermont Public Interest Research Group. Mr. President, our vote was 5-0-0. I'll just add an addendum that both the volunteer and professional firefighters did come into our committee to inform us about their understanding of what is available out there at in a cost-effective way for replacement of PPE, and that really very much drove our decisions on the timing for PPE, prohibiting PPE in the state that contains PFAS. Mr. President, that is the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Are you, Senator from Addison?
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the reporter of the bill?
Reporter will be interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. It feels like every year we do a bill about PFAS, and so I'm having a bit of deja vu, particularly because I worked on several of those as a member of the committee. But my recollection from last year is that we did a bill very similarly, a very similar bill, and we requested a report of the Agency of Natural Resource from Matt Chapman. He spent a lot of time with us last year. And my recollection is that the report that we requested was very similar to the report that's in section 4 of this bill. And the conversation, and Madam Chair, I'm sure you remember it as well, was really about how could we address the regulation of PFAS without doing these sort of one-offs for products each year, just sort of adding another product. And my recollection is that we asked for a report about could we do regulation more broadly as a class rather than individually as a type of product and a type of chemical. And I'm wondering if the committee heard the results of that report, and if they did, was it not viable? And why is it that we are continuing with this sort of incremental approach rather than a more holistic approach?
Thank you for that question. Actually, it's a complicated, not really complicated answer, but yes, we did hear back from ANR regarding having a more comprehensive program embedded in the Agency of Natural Resources. And as the bill came to us from the House also made a decision not to expand at this time. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is we already have a very broad definition of PFAS. So our broad definition includes thousands of chemicals, where other states may look at 1 or 2 chemicals. There are other states who are also looking at that broad definition of PFAS and how to build a very general regulatory scheme for it, or paradigm for it. So some of those states might be Maine or Minnesota, and then you get to an endpoint. So to have a broad regulatory process could be very expensive and might take a significant amount of resources to put in place. It doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. So we have asked the Agency of Natural Resources to convene with other states to understand other states to also deal with our broad definition of PFAS. How are they looking at the broader regulation within their agencies of Department of Environmental Conservation or other? So really that's it. And as I said early on, the regulatory process at the federal level is pretty lean, and there's not a lot of support for the broad definition that we have, although fortunately we can have that definition in our state.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So is the report that we received back from the agency this year, basically, if my understanding of your answer is that they need more time to do more research on whether or not to do a broader, more holistic approach, and not just on PFAS, but other toxic chemicals? Or is that my understanding of what you said, is that they need more time to look at what other states are doing before they can recommend whether or not a broader approach is appropriate?
No. ANR did propose a new program, but when they proposed it, they were basing it on the very narrow federal definition of PFAS and not on the definition that we traditionally use in Vermont to regulate PFAS in consumer products.
Okay.
So a class of fluorinated organic chemicals containing at least one fully fluorinated carbon atom is a definition that we use. At the federal level, they have identified now, they've narrowed it down, 2 chemicals at the EPA. There's a vast difference in what would be covered. So the A&R proposal was for a very much narrower definition.
I see. Okay. All right. I thank the reporter of the bill, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator from Rutland,
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may interrogate the reporter.
you may.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I do respect the work of the current Health and Welfare Committee on their work on PFAS. And as an alumni of the work last year on PFAS with colleague from Addison, colleague from Rutland, I know this is a critical topic. Last year, there was much discussion about extreme weather gear exception, which included firefighting equipment, because I believe at the time that the textile industry did not have acceptable substitutes. I'll get back to that in just a sec. Having served as a damage control officer on several ships, where you can imagine in the environment full of fuel, full of missiles, ammunition, et cetera, everybody's a firefighter. So we would routinely live in fire retardant equipment and certainly have be able to upgrade into more significant firefighting equipment if the need arose. So I understand the need to protect our firefighters. So I'm okay with adding the exceptions for PFAS and dental floss. Personally, I don't want to put PFAS in my mouth if I can help it. But back to firefighting equipment. So my first question is, if the reporter could clarify that we're barring the sale of PFAS and firefighting equipment, PPE, until or in 2029.
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. And again, back to the topic of whether the textile industry is ready for such a transition if they have acceptable substitutes for firefighting equipment, Mr. President.
And that will be part of the report that's coming back to us from A&R. But at this point, we do think that there is PPE available without PFAS. The notice will still go forward until that date of 2029.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the reporter. And my last question is, how do we, in re-equipping our professional and our volunteer firefighting services with resources, I'm wondering if during the testimony from professional and volunteer firefighters, if there was any pushback on how we're going to provide the resources necessary to make the transition from equipment which currently has PFAS to equipment which doesn't in 4 years.
So that was a big part of the discussion, Mr. President. So the volunteer firefighting organizations are very concerned about cost. The professional firefighters were less concerned about cost, but they overall wanted to make sure that PPE would be available for purchase. So it's still, it's there in 2029. We also heard that there is the potential for a company that may be producing PFAS-free PPE in the state of Vermont. I cannot validate that in any way, but I have heard from one of the witnesses, more than one of the witnesses, and talked with some of our folks from economic development to sort that out. So yes, this is very much on the radar for producers of protective equipment.
So I thank the reporter. I remain concerned about the cost to our professional and volunteer firefighting services. It's not in the budget to make a transition of this sort for firefighting equipment. And we're essentially, we need to remain vigilant to the fact that over the next two budget cycles, that if we make these kinds of decisions, that we do properly recognize that our professionals and our volunteers have to make the transition, and that's not an insignificant number. And I just want to sensitize the chamber to that issue. I do agree with the premise of the bill, but I do think we need to remain vigilant in the out years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator from Rutland. Senator from Orleans.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I interrogate the presenter of the bill, please?
Presenter will be interrogated.
Mr. President, are we on an island as far as what the other states around us are doing with PFAS remediation?
Can you clarify?
Are there any other states that are being as strict as what we are any of our neighboring states?
Yes.
So are our definitions of PFAS more strict than what the federal government says the harmful levels are?
In terms of the parts per trillion
Or
in
any
drinking
part?
water, then the answer is no.
Okay. So my concern is that we've been battling a PCB problem, which I know isn't PFAS, but it's a chemical in our area schools. And in our interpretation, the state's interpretation of what was harmful versus the federal government's interpretation was harmful, caused us to spend better than $8 million in our high school to try to mitigate this. And I don't know that we're any closer to that. I mean, we're looking at millions and millions of dollars to go there, and that other states probably wouldn't do. And I'm not saying, I guess my concern being is that are we so far ahead of everyone else of trying to figure out how harmful this chemical is? And I have no doubt that it's harmful. But are we so far ahead of everybody else that we put ourselves out by ourselves, rather than the neighboring states really aren't as concerned as what we are?
Mr. President, we are not far ahead of everyone else, and we're getting close to being behind, but we are consistent with states around us. And the chemical that was in the school is not PFAS, so that wouldn't be an issue in that conversation. It is an issue within the firefighting equipment, and we, in the Senate Health and Welfare, were extremely sensitive to the comments that we heard both from the volunteer and the professional firefighters, and they both agreed with the decision that we had made in this bill.
My last question, Mr. President, is who's administrating the oversight as far as on these products, all the products that we've banned?
So right now, it's in Title IX, which is the consumer protection statutes, so under the guidance of the Attorney General. And there's a lot of trust that will be going on. So manufacturers will be certifying that they do not have PFAS in the products that they're selling in the state.
But to be clear, Mr. President, New Hampshire, New York, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut have as strict as PFAS regulations as what Vermont has, or stricter?
So that's one of the reports that we're getting back from ANR about what states that do have our broad definition do. So as I said before, we know about Maine, Minnesota, Rhode Island approaching that. And I'm not sure about Massachusetts, but they are, yes, Massachusetts. So we've got a number of states around us. And everyone is moving in the direction that we're moving, because this stuff is ubiquitous and it never goes away. It's forever.
I think, Senator, thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the bill as proposed by the Committee on Health and Welfare. The question now is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of H 238. We now have up for action S63, an act relating to modifying the regulatory duties of the Green Mountain Care Board, a House proposal of amendment. And I would look to the senior senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Health and Welfare reviewed the proposal amendment that came back to us on S63. It is not a strike all. It is one section. It's actually two sections. Section 7, which relates to really ask the question, an underlying bill, is the budget decision by the board, the budget-making process, is that a contested case process? And so as a contested case, if it were a contested case, then it would be adversarial. It would require a very adversarial process requiring rules of evidence. And the appeal process would be to Superior Court. So as we looked at this proposal amendment and heard further about it, and we did have the Green Mountain Care Board in as well as Ledge Council, the budget process is a more collaborative process. It's transparent, includes the healthcare advocate, and once an order is given on the budget or any other order given by the board, there is the ability to appeal to the Supreme Court. So we felt that having the adversarial process injected into the budget process was not consistent with how budgets are currently made. So we accepted section 7 on the proposed amendment from the House. And then there's another section 10 with effective dates in the bill, underlying bill. There is effective date for conditions and criteria for establishing Medicare ACOs in the state. Moving the date out to January 2027, as the House has done, will allow for the board to write rules, have rulemaking about that process for establishing Medicare ACOs. So, Mr. President, with that in mind, your Senate Health and Welfare asks that the Senate concur with the proposal of amendment as it came back to us from the House.
Thank you, Senator from Chittenden Southeast. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment on S63, an act relating to modifying the regulatory duties of the Green Mountain Care Board? Are you ready for that question? Senator from Addison.
Thank you. May I inquire of the reporter?
The reporter will be interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just want to make sure that if the board orders their enforcement of hospital budgets, that is still a binding enforcement that a hospital has to follow, that this change does not make it so that a hospital does not make the board's actions optional.
So currently, when the board goes through the budget process, it's a collaborative, transparent process. And when it's finished and the board issues an order, the hospital follows the order. If the hospital wishes to contest that order, it can go to the Supreme Court. There was a difference of opinion about whether or not this process, budget process, should be under the contested case process. And so the question was raised recently about making the case appealable to the Superior Court, and that would have made it a more adversarial process and deviated from what currently happens within the budget process. So when a budget is determined and an order is given, yes, the hospital follows that order. If they don't wish to follow the order, they can currently appeal to the Supreme Court, and this allows for that to continue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment on S63? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have concurred in S63 with the House proposal of amendment. That completes the orders of the day. Are there any announcements? Let me begin that process by declaring a brief recess while we complete a bit of work to allow a conference committee to be formed.
Basically, the bulk of their, yeah.
Senate will come to order. And I would look to the senator from Wyndham District for a motion.
Thank you. I move that pending entry on the calendar for notice, the rules be suspended, and S12, an act relating to sealing criminal history records, be taken up for immediate consideration.
Senator from Wyndham has moved that your rules be suspended in order to take up S12 for immediate action. Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have taken up S12 for immediate action. S12 was passed by the House with a proposal of amendment. Question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment? Again, I would look to the senator from Wyndham.
Move that the Senate not concur in the House proposal of amendment and request that a committee of conference be adopted.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate not concur in the House proposal of amendment and appoint a committee of conference? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have not concurred in the House proposal of amendment on S12, and you have looked to appoint a committee of conference instead. Are there any further announcements? Senator from Windsor District.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a end of session gathering for the Climate Solutions Caucus tomorrow night. You're all invited. More free food, but this time in the evening.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Washington District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 1 o'clock.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Wyndham.
The Senate institutions will meet this afternoon. Right now it's 2:30, so if folks could just check the schedule, please.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Government operations will meet at 1:30.
Senator from Grand Isle.
Senate appropriations will meet at 1.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, I would look to the third member for an adjournment motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adjourn until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, May 21st.
Senator from Chittenden Southeast has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 10 a.m., May 21st. Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have adjourned until 10 a.m., May 21st.